I'm standing here in a stand of sacred trees. We are going to talk today about this beautiful, graceful giant you see across California, the Deodar Cedar. The Deodar Cedar belongs to the Cupressaceae family, which is the cypress family. It also happens to be the same family that our native cedar trees as well as our redwoods and sequoias belong to. And it is probably with this in mind that California's plant collectors first brought the Deodar Cedar to California. But this was no simple task at the time. 100 years ago in the 19th century, when our horticultural collectors here in California, who upon realizing the miraculous climate that we had here could host plants from all over the world, people set straight to work. The native habitat of the Deodar Cedar is in the western Himalayas, and in fact actually really high elevation, closer to 10,000 feet. So the Deodar Cedar's name actually hints at its religious and spiritual significance. The name Deodar comes from the Sanskrit word devadaru, which means timber of the gods, and you can see in this long straight trunk would have made this a really highly prized timber source. But its use as a timber source is not where it stops. This tree has a great spiritual significance, and frequently you find them planted around temple precincts all around the Indian subcontinent, whether that be at Hindu or at Buddhist temples. In Hindu spiritual practice, the Deodar Cedar is considered to be the tree of the gods. Its longevity and its towering height has given it symbolic importance with endurance and the afterlife. In fact, these trees have been planted on temple precincts, and the opposite is also true. Temples have been located near naturally occurring stands of Deodar Cedars, which was considered then to have offered the temple precincts the protection of the gods. The symbolism continues. In the Himalayan regions where the Deodar Cedar originates from, the folklore of the region accords these Deodar Cedars as dwelling places of the spirits of the forest and of forest deities, adding an additional spiritual dimension to this particular tree. Even here in the United States and in California, when you see them, this symbolism is frequently echoed. You see them frequently actually planted at cemeteries because of this linkage with the afterlife. Now, given these linkages to concepts to protection, strength, immortality, longevity, even sacred significance, this tree has one final aspect to it that's actually tied to a cool botanical fact. Many members of the Cupressaceae family, cedars of course being one of the prominent examples, redwoods and sequoias actually being another. They are fungus resistant, they are fire resistant, and they are rot resistant wood. As a sort of timber that adds to that dimension of longevity and survival and immortality that this tree has. Now, this tree has also come to symbolize the spirit of heroes and of prominent individuals who have made history, to be a lasting representation of the immortal impacts that these people made on their communities. Now, some cool botanical facts about the Deodar Cedar. If you're standing here with me, I can only describe this to you, the really rich, woody, incensey fragrance that is surrounding us as I'm speaking. The litter here on the ground has a really beautiful aromatic fragrance that we try to channel in some of our woody scents in some of our Old California Botanicals products. But these trees, the fact that they exist here in Southern California is really a very special thing. Coming all the way to California in the middle of the 19th century from the foothills of the Himalayas, which at that point would have been a very, very long distance for these sorts of trees to travel, and to have them succeed in a very specific habitat is nothing short of a miracle. To have brought this type of tree all the way from the Himalayas to California would have also been no small feat, which would have attracted the attention of people who visited this botanical garden. That is to say, this was a very expensive and hard to get tree for people to bring to California at the time that they did, and it would have been a status symbol for any horticulturalist or plant collector. Now, these trees, if left to their own devices, as with many of the members of the Cupressaceae family, like redwoods and sequoias, can live thousands of years, which only continues to add to the folklore aspect of these trees and their connection with immortality. How can you identify these trees when you're out and about here in Southern California? Well, as you can see behind me, the trees, particularly the younger trees, have a very feathery, wispy appearance, and as they age, you can see how the branches tend to weep slightly downward, and so that actually gives the telltale appearance when you're looking far off. Now, other ways you can identify the tree are by looking at what you find around it. So here in my hand I've got some dry litter, as well as some branches here that had fallen to the ground that have fresh green needles, and some of the cones here as well. But it's that telltale sort of weepy top that is the telltale appearance of a deodar cedar in the skyline and the treescape of Southern Californian communities.